Anyone who knows anything at all about anime knows of Code Geass. A huge fan base, however, is extremely divided on R2. You either love it or you hate it. There aren't many people on the middle ground. I'm going to compare the two seasons and see what R2 did right and what it did wrong. The obvious greatest strength of R1 is the well-written story. The events flow together nicely, there aren't any plot holes, the battles are compelling, strategy and mind games are intense, the struggle of a man and his group of misfits ascending to power just feels right. The vast majority of people who say they hated R2 will say it's because of the story that it sucks big hairy donkey balls. There are more plot holes than a country road in Michigan, events feel more and more contrived as the season progresses, and characters appear to have no idea what the fuck personality they're supposed to have. Now, while some of the plot holes could be forgiven and dismissed as simple road bumps, there are many that made me go, "What the fuck?" and either furrow my eyebrows or laugh out loud. For one, the transition from R1 to R2 was like, bad. The whole issue with the Lelouch being kept alive as bait for C2 kinda made sense. But in the end, anyone paying attention is left asking, why the fuck was C2 even necessary for their plan in the first place? And the whole thing with Lelouch instantly regaining his memories just by kissing C2 was just ugh. And why the fuck didn't they put a microphone or tracking device on Lelouch? Why waste all these resources on surveillance? You can't tell me the technology didn't exist. The whole Sword of Akasha nonsense and slaying God bullshit was undoubtedly the most retarded and pretentious shit in the whole show and made no fucking sense whatsoever. Okay, I'ma stab Jupiter in the eye and God's gonna die, okay? And the whole what? Lelouch controlling God? Is that supposed to be what happened? Fuck! The show would have been much better off if they had just entirely removed that whole subplot. Where Guilford had a great moment where he sacrifices himself to save Princess Cornelia under the control of the Geass. It was an intense moment where the viewers are like, what? This be fucked up? And the Geass made him sacrifice himself for nothing and OMG and stuff. But then the piss gets taken out of the whole thing when the writers are like, LOL, Guilford didn't die, lol. And he shows up for a minute-long scene and then adds absolutely nothing to the show. In fact, his resurrection alone takes away more from the show than it adds, because it establishes the writers as those type of writers that whenever they kill off a character, they just like, nope, gotta bring him back to life. It's fucking retarded. There's just no other way to describe it. Jeremiah also quoted Jesus twice, mysteriously being resurrected with no explanation whatsoever. At least his presence mattered later. These things are just the tip of the iceberg. Regardless of what it may sound like at this point, this rant is not about me trying to find all the plot hacks and what the fuck moments R2 has. It's me trying to convince you that it's not as bad as it's made out to be. So let's do some convincing. Giving credit where it's due, I just felt R2 to be a lot more emotionally compelling than R1. Things just felt a lot more intense than they did in R1. The action was more entertaining, the pace was quicker, characters felt more compelling, and I just felt more emotionally invested in what was going on. Speaking of characters, I felt that characterization improved greatly from R1. Lelouch, awesome this season, a vibe that I didn't really get before. Speaking of Lord Jeremiah, it just felt so awesome and right to hear him say, "Yes, your majesty!" That just hit me right here. Not to mention when Suzaku does it. "Yes, your majesty!" Just feels so right. I love seeing Lelouch's psychological breakdowns as he spirals down further and further. His action becoming more and more extreme, even deciding to break his previously established policy of not using his Geass on his sister. Suzaku finally redeems himself as a character in R2 and finally stops being a little bitch. I kept facepalming every time he touted his naive idealism against Zero, only to get completely destroyed by Zero's counter-arguments. In R2, he finally realizes that his plan was completely retarded, since lives would have been lost no matter what, and realizes that the end really does justify the means. This finally redeemed his annoying retarded ass. Nina...
An 11 here at school?
He is an honorary Britannian.
I know, but still all the same.
Shut the fuck up, Nina, you crazy racist, table-raping lesbian. The annoying cunt that she was in season 1 ends up being somewhat tolerable. For the most part. Well, more tolerable than she was anyway. I literally flew into a fit of rage every time the screen was defiled by her presence and yelled, "Get off the fucking screen, Nina!" I was still disappointed that she didn't die by the end, but at least I was no longer filled with table-flipping rage every time I saw her. Or, if you're Nina, table-raping rage. That poor table. She was hands down the thing I hated most about R1. Hands down. Not even close. However, not all is good in the hood. Fan service has increased exponentially, and now includes more token lollies for the pedophiles out there. Lady Kaguya actually has importance in R2, but the Empress, who could have maintained a dignified presence without it, is put in exposing positions for no particular reason. Worst of all, you have Anya, who wears downright slutty clothing for no reason other than the obvious, completely ruining what could have been a decent emotionless girl type before I even got the chance to like her first. There's somehow even more call-in service now than R1 had, severely turning me off from liking a decent character. Unfortunately, C2 also falls victim to this. She could have been a decent character if it weren't for the fact that you're mostly there for just TNA most of the way. Not only didn't seem like she would ever be willing to try to kill her own brother either, but for some reason she decides she's willing to do so anyway. But that ending, God, is it awesome. Everything about it just felt so right. Fucking amazing way to draw a story on such a scale to a close. R2 just felt a lot more exciting and satisfying to me in more ways than one. At the end of the day, it all comes down to what you value more, story or emotional involvement. If you like well-written stories, naturally you like R1 more than R2. I'm not going to try to tell you which one is better than the other, but I think they're at least comparable or on par. The emotional drive and improved characters of R2 makes up for the plot holes and what the fuck moments in the story. I'm guessing it's the emotional drive that could explain why R2 has a higher mean score than R1 on Mall as well. Nina, go fuck yourself with a cactus!